I never imagined I'd end up on national television, let alone for something like this. But here I was, standing backstage, heart racing, trying to calm myself down. My daughter Lily had somehow convinced me to take part in this ridiculous reality show where I'd revisit my past with my ex-wife. It sounded like a bad joke at first, but Lily's enthusiasm was contagious. And maybe I agreed because I knew deep down that there were things between Kate and me that we'd never really resolved. "Dad, this is your chance," Lily had said earlier, her eyes shining with hope. She wasn't wrong. It was an opportunity for closure, wasn't it? But I wasn't sure I was ready for this. I had spent years moving on, burying the pain of our broken marriage deep down. Still, the show was about second chances. Lily was pushing for us to rekindle things, and I couldn't bring myself to disappoint her. She didn't know the full story, though. She didn't know how I still hurt when I thought of Kate, how much of me had died the day she walked out of our lives. As I stood there waiting to walk out on stage, memories of Kate flooded back. I could still see her face, hear her voice, feel her warmth next to me. It had been years since we'd split, but it still felt like the pain was fresh. When we'd first met, everything had seemed so perfect. She was ambitious, smart, and always had a plan. I admired that about her, but it was also what tore us apart in the end. I always supported her, always pushed her to go further in her career, but at some point I became nothing more than a shadow in her life. Lily had no idea how much it hurt to see Kate move on, how she seemed so happy without me. The show would force me to face all of that head on, and I didn't know if I was ready. I knew I'd be forced to confront the emotions I buried, but I also knew I couldn't back out. Lily wanted this, and I owed it to her. A producer approached me, snapping me back to the present. "You're up in 5, she said, her voice brisk but kind. I nodded, feeling my palms sweat. As I walked toward the stage, I wondered if I was making a huge mistake. The lights blinded me as I stepped onto the set. The bright cameras pointed at me like an unforgiving spotlight. My heart was pounding in my chest, and then, there she was, Kate, standing across the room from me, looking just as I remembered, beautiful, composed, and so distant. But this time there was a calmness in her demeanor, as if she had no lingering regrets. She didn't know it, but that made everything harder. "Liam," she said, her voice colder than I expected, but still with a hint of warmth. "It's been a long time." I forced a smile, even though everything inside me was a mess. "Yeah, it has. Too long." Lily appeared beside me, practically bouncing with excitement. "Mom, Dad, this is going to be amazing. You guys are going to get a second chance." I didn't know if I could live up to that hope in her eyes. I could see it then. Kate's gaze flickered for a brief moment, something I couldn't quite read. Maybe it was regret. Maybe it was guilt. But then it was gone, hidden behind the polished exterior she'd built for herself. She'd moved on, and I was still standing here, stuck in the past, wondering what could have been. As we sat down across from each other, I couldn't help but feel the weight of everything that had been left unsaid between us. The cameras started rolling, and the host's voice cut through the silence. "Tonight we'll talk about second chances, about forgiveness, and about love." I glanced at Kate. She looked at me with those same eyes that had once held so much affection for me. Now they were guarded, calculating. There was something inside me that wanted to beg her to remember.
To remember the love we shared.
But I didn't know if I was strong enough to face the truth of what happened between us. Lily's excitement was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. She smiled at us both, clearly hopeful that we could somehow fix everything. But what Lily didn't know was that second chances weren't as simple as they seemed. Some things were just too broken to repair. "I just want you both to be happy," Lily said, her voice full of innocence, full of hope. I met Kate's gaze, wondering if she felt the same way. But as she smiled back at Lily, I knew the truth. We weren't the same people anymore. And whatever we had, whatever we'd built, was in the past. But I still wasn't ready to let go completely. Not yet. The moment the cameras started rolling, I felt the air in the room shift. It wasn't just the spotlight. It wasn't the cameras on me. It was the weight of everything between Kate and me that made everything feel heavy. The tension, the history, the unspoken things, all of it came rushing back in an instant. Lily sat next to me, bright-eyed, hopeful. She smiled at us both, unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. "This is going to be amazing, right?" You two are finally going to fix everything, she said, her voice full of innocence. But how could she know? How could she understand that what she was asking for, what she was hoping for, was something that felt impossible? Kate looked at me then, and for the first time in years, I saw something in her eyes that made my chest tighten. Was it regret? It was hard to say. Her face was calm, controlled, but there was something there. She wasn't the same woman I remembered, but neither was I. Liam, she said, her voice steady but with a hint of hesitation. It's been a long time. Her words were polite, surface level, nothing more. I nodded, trying to keep my emotions in check. I couldn't let the past swallow me whole, but it felt impossible not to be drawn back in. Yeah, it has. I paused. A long time. The host asked us to start, and so we did. We began talking about the good times we'd had. How we'd met, how things had been so easy back then. It all sounded so simple when we said it out loud, but I could feel the cracks under the surface. How many times had we said we'd work things out in the past, only to find that we were never on the same page? How many times had we brushed things under the rug, pretending that everything was fine? Kate shifted in her seat, her hands clasped tightly together. I could see her trying to stay composed, but there was something in her eyes that told me she was remembering the same things I was. The mistakes, the failures, the things we never talked about. Do you ever think about what went wrong? I asked, my voice quieter now, almost to myself. But I needed to hear her answer. I needed to know if she had the same regrets I had. She hesitated for a moment before looking away. Of course I do. But things were complicated, Liam. She shifted again, her gaze now fixed on the table. It's easy to look back and want to change things, but the reality is... She stopped herself, not finishing the sentence. I felt that old anger creeping up. The same frustration I had when we were married. The same feeling of being ignored, of being dismissed. What, Kate? What's the reality? My voice was sharper now, but I couldn't help it. I had buried these feelings for so long, but in this moment, they all came rushing back. She looked at me, her eyes flickering with a mixture of something I couldn't place. Regret, pain. I left because I thought I needed something else. I thought I had to choose a different path. Maybe I was wrong, but I was lost back then. Her voice faltered at the end. It wasn't the cold, confident tone she usually used when discussing her career or her life. This was the Kate I hadn't seen in years, the woman who used to let me in. Lily's voice broke through the silence. But you're both here now. Isn't that a good thing? Isn't that the start of something? I looked at my daughter, her hopeful eyes full of innocence. She didn't know. She didn't know how deeply the past hurt. She didn't understand the complexities of the choices that had been made. She just wanted us to be happy again. I wanted that too, for her, for me, but I wasn't sure if I could ever get back to that place. I turned to Kate, my heart pounding in my chest. I don't know what you want from me, Kate. You've made your choices. And I've made mine. But you're asking me to just forget it all, like none of it mattered. Kate's face softened slightly, but she still wouldn't let go of the walls she'd built. I'm not asking you to forget, Liam, but maybe we can learn to live with it. Maybe we can find a way to move forward. Not like we were before, but differently. I felt the words hit me like a slap in the face. You really think we can just move on? That's it? After everything? There was a long silence between us. I could see the struggle in her eyes, but it didn't change anything. Her ambition, her choices, they had pushed us apart. I couldn't forget that. I don't know, Kate finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. I wish I had an answer, but I know I can't undo what happened. The words stung, but they were honest, and that at least was something. I wasn't sure what I expected from this conversation. I wasn't sure if there even was a way forward for us, but I knew one thing. We couldn't keep pretending like things were okay when they weren't. Lily was still smiling, unaware of the storm that was brewing between her parents. I think you two can make this work. I really do. Her optimism was like a dagger in my chest. I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe that this was the start of something good. But the truth was I was still broken, and Kate, for all the regret she showed, was still driven by the same ambition that had torn us apart in the first place. I don't know if we can fix this, Lily, I said quietly, my voice thick with emotion, but we'll try. I met Kate's eyes one last time, and for the first time I wasn't sure if I could forgive her or if I even wanted to. couldn't believe what I was hearing. The camera zoomed in on Kate as she sat next to Marcus, the man who had helped fund this ridiculous show. They were laughing, talking like everything was fine, like nothing had happened between us, like I didn't exist in the same room. My heart dropped. When the host asked Kate about her new life, her eyes flicked to me for just a second. A brief glance, but it was enough. "I've learned a lot," she said, but I could see the hesitation in her voice. The words didn't match her eyes. Her expression was different, cold, controlled. But then, the host dropped the bombshell. "So, I hear there's someone special in your life now, Kate. Is there someone we should know about?" Kate froze for a moment, her lips parting slightly as if she wasn't sure what to say. But Marcus, sitting beside her, smiled confidently, his arm casually placed on the back of her chair. "I think everyone knows who she's talking about," he said smoothly. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I stared at Kate, waiting for her to say something, anything, but she just sat there, looking at me like she was waiting for me to understand. It was clear now. She wasn't just moving on from our past. She had been seeing Marcus in secret this whole time. My chest tightened, and I felt something sharp slice through me. The anger was immediate, overwhelming. "You," I whispered, my voice cracking as I stood up from my chair. I couldn't even look at her. The betrayal stung, but what hurt more was that I had been so blind. Kate glanced at me quickly, then back at Marcus, as if waiting for him to say something. "Liam, I didn't want you to find out like this," she said finally, her voice quieter now with a hint of guilt. "But this is where we are." I cut her off. I felt my pulse in my ears, my anger rising again. "I don't need you to explain. I know what's going on now." The camera crew was still rolling, but I didn't care. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The woman I had tried to protect, the one I had loved, was sitting next to another man, and not just any man, Marcus. The same guy who had been giving me the cold shoulder every time we crossed paths. The man she had been secretly with this whole time. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I stayed silent, standing there in front of them, feeling like an idiot. "Liam?" Kate trailed off again, but she didn't get the chance to finish. I turned away from her. I couldn't look at her anymore, not now. Not when the truth hit me so hard. I walked off the set trying to collect myself, but my mind was racing. What had I been doing all this time? All the support, all the sacrifices. I had trusted her, and she was out there with Marcus, betraying me. And it wasn't just her. It was me too. I had failed to see it. I had been living in a dream, hoping she would come back to me, but she never did. She had already chosen. I went to my dressing room, slamming the door behind me. I had to breathe. I had to think. But all I could feel was rage. I had been a fool, a damn fool. After a few minutes, the door creaked open, and there she was, Kate. I couldn't even look at her as she stepped inside. She closed the door behind her and stood there waiting for me to say something, anything. "Liam, please," she started, her voice softer now, almost apologetic. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this." I finally turned to face her, my fists clenched at my sides. "You didn't mean to?" "What, Kate? Was this some kind of game to you? You just wanted to move on and leave me behind? Was I not good enough?" Her eyes flickered with something like regret, but it wasn't enough. "Not after everything." "It's not like that," she said, stepping closer, but I took a step back. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I was doing what was best for both of us." "For both of us?" I repeated, the anger boiling inside me. "You left me. You broke our family apart. And for what? Power? Money? It was never about us, Kate. It was about you." Her eyes filled with unshed tears, but I didn't care. The damage had already been done. "I'm sorry, Liam. I never meant for you to get hurt." "Then why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Why hide it? Why do this behind my back?" The betrayal was too much to bear. The truth had never felt heavier than it did in that moment. She was standing in front of me, but I didn't recognize her anymore. "I didn't want to lose you," she whispered. But I was already losing myself, and I thought I could fix things with Marcus. I couldn't even process what she was saying anymore. "Fix things?" I repeated. "You left me, Kate. You chose him." "I was confused," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I needed something else. I thought I could be happy, but I was wrong. I don't know what to do anymore, Liam." I stood there staring at her. The hurt in her voice was real, but it didn't change anything. The damage had already been done. "You made your choice, Kate," I said quietly. "And now I'm making mine. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep being your backup plan." Her face fell. She opened her mouth to speak again, but I stopped her. "I need to move on. I can't keep letting you pull me in when you've already walked away." I walked out of the room, the weight of everything heavy on my shoulders. There was no satisfaction in the truth. No victory, only pain. And now I had to figure out what came next. I had to do something. I couldn't just sit back and let this go on any longer. Kate and Marcus had played me for too long, and now it was time for me to take back control. It started slowly, gathering information, watching Marcus's every move, listening to his conversations when I could. I didn't care about playing nice anymore. What had been done to me couldn't be undone with apologies or soft words. I had to make them understand that there were consequences. Real consequences. They couldn't just keep walking all over me. The first step was figuring out how Marcus operated. He was slick, smooth talker, wealthy, and well-connected. He had all the power, but I had something he didn't: patience. I was going to wait, watch, and learn everything about him. The more I found out, the more I could feel the anger inside me start to swell. He wasn't just a businessman. He was a manipulator. I started digging deeper, asking questions, looking for the cracks in his polished exterior. I knew I had to be careful. If he suspected anything, all of this could backfire. But every night I'd sit alone, sorting through everything I had learned, my anger burning hotter. The more I found, the more I realized just how much I hated him. But then the doubt crept in. Was this really about justice? Or was I just consumed by anger? What would getting back at Marcus even accomplish? Would it really make me feel better? Would it fix anything? Or would it just feed this cycle of rage and bitterness that I couldn't escape? I pushed the thoughts aside. It didn't matter. He deserved it. Kate deserved it too, for leaving me, for choosing him over me. The betrayal still stung, and every time I thought about it, it made me want to burn everything to the ground. So I focused on the plan. I'd get Marcus to expose himself. It would be subtle, quiet, but effective. I wasn't going to take him down with violence or threats. I was going to use the one thing he couldn't control: his own arrogance. One day I found a slip, a small detail, but one that could ruin him. It was buried in a stack of paperwork, a trail of misused funds he had tried to cover up. It wasn't much on its own, but with the right push, it would be enough. I made sure to keep it hidden, only pulling it out when I knew the time was right. But with every new piece of evidence I gathered, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I wasn't just trying to get back at them, I was doing this to prove something to myself. It wasn't just about Marcus or Kate anymore. It was about me, about regaining control over my own life, my own feelings. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't the person I used to be. Before all of this, I was calm, rational. But now I was a man consumed by revenge. I could feel it in my bones, the way it twisted inside me. It wasn't enough to expose them. It wasn't even about justice anymore. I just wanted them to feel what I felt. The loss, the pain, the betrayal. I heard a knock at the door, snapping me out of my thoughts. I quickly shoved the papers back into my drawer, wiping the anger from my face. It was Claire. She was always around now, checking on me. I knew she meant well, but I couldn't tell her what I was really planning. She would never understand. "Liam?" She stepped inside, hesitating. "I've been thinking about everything." I didn't respond immediately, trying to keep my expression neutral. I wasn't sure what she wanted to say, but I wasn't ready to talk about it. I wasn't ready to confront everything with her yet. Not until I had this figured out. "What about everything?" I asked, trying to keep the conversation casual. She sat down, wringing her hands together. "I know you've been hurting, and I can see that you're angry. I just want to help." I took a deep breath. She didn't know. She couldn't know. I couldn't let her in on this, not yet. "I appreciate it, Claire, but I'm handling it," I said, my voice a little colder than I intended. She frowned, sensing something was off, but she didn't push. "Just remember, you don't have to do this alone." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Thanks, I know." But in my head, I was already planning the next move. I couldn't let her stop me. No one could. After Claire left, I sat in silence for a while, staring at the files on my desk. I had everything I needed now. I was just one step away from exposing them. I had to remind myself that this wasn't just for revenge. This was about me reclaiming my life, about making sure they never took me for granted again. The night stretched on, and I couldn't stop thinking about the choices I had made. The line between right and wrong blurred more every time I considered the plan. I knew what I was doing wasn't the path to peace, but I didn't know another way. Maybe revenge was all I had left. I glanced at the file again, the weight of it pressing down on me. Tomorrow I would make my move. Tomorrow they would know that I was no longer the man they could push aside. They would see me for what I had become. A man who wouldn't let anyone, least of all them, decide his fate. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what I might have to do to make that happen. The moment had come. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, and I certainly couldn't keep letting them think they could walk all over me. Kate and Marcus had manipulated me long enough. I had gathered every piece of information, every secret they thought was safe, and now it was time for them to face the truth. I walked into the office, my heart pounding in my chest. Kate was there, sitting at her desk, looking as polished and composed as ever. Marcus was in the corner, his back to me, typing on his laptop. When he turned and saw me, his eyes flicked to Kate before settling back on me. I could tell he was trying to stay calm, but there was a glimmer of unease in his eyes. Good. He should be worried. Kate looked up from her desk, meeting my gaze. For a split second, there was a flicker of something in her eyes. Guilt? Regret? No, I wasn't going to let her manipulate me with that anymore. Liam, she said, her voice too smooth, too practiced. What are you doing here? I stepped forward, feeling the weight of everything I'd been holding inside. We need to talk. Kate's expression hardened. I don't know what you think you know, but no, I cut her off. This is no longer about what I think. This is about the truth. All the lies. The manipulation. The way you used me. I took a deep breath, feeling a strange sense of calm settle over me. It was almost like I was floating above the situation, watching everything unfold, seeing how small their world really was. You used me to get ahead. You played me like I was some fool. And Marcus, I turned to him, you've been playing both sides. You thought you could control everything, didn't you? But you never counted on me. Marcus stood up, his eyes narrowing. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I do. I stepped closer, my voice lowering but growing in intensity. I know about the deals you made behind Kate's back. I know how you used her to climb your own ladder, and I know how you thought I'd be too stupid to notice. Kate flinched, her eyes flashing with a mix of defensiveness and something else. Regret, maybe. But I wasn't interested in her excuses anymore. I've seen it all, Kate. The lies you told me, the things you kept from me while I helped you build your empire. You left me to rot, and for what? To climb higher with him? I pointed at Marcus, my voice thick with emotion. I didn't want it to happen this way, Kate whispered, her voice shaking slightly. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did. I stepped even closer, my voice now a mere whisper, but it carried the weight of everything I had held in for too long. You didn't care, and you didn't think about me when you made those choices. Her eyes welled up, but I couldn't bring myself to care. I had shed enough tears over this. I thought we had something real, I said, my voice breaking despite my best efforts to keep it steady. But it turns out you never even tried to fight for us. You were too busy fighting for power. Marcus laughed darkly, his tone mocking. You think this is about power, Liam? It's always been about survival. And if you weren't smart enough to see that, that's your problem. I met his gaze with a coldness that surprised even me. You can't keep playing these games, Marcus. It's over for both of you. The silence hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I saw Kate's face crumble slightly as she realized the gravity of what had happened. But I wasn't done yet. I needed her to understand what she had done, to finally see the damage her ambition had caused. I don't need you to choose me, Kate, I said, my voice steady now, stronger than it had been in weeks. I need you to choose us. I need you to understand what you did to us, to me, to everything we once had. Kate opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. She closed her eyes as if she couldn't bear to face me. And that, in that moment, was all I needed. I didn't want her to apologize or beg. I just needed her to face the consequences of her actions. You don't get to walk away from this without seeing the truth, I said, turning to Marcus, who had remained silent throughout. And you, Marcus, don't think you're getting off easy. The world is starting to see who you really are. I stepped back, feeling the weight of everything I had just said settle over me. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about winning. It was about me walking away from this, finally free from the chains I had built around myself. Kate and Marcus stood there silent, both of them finally realizing that I was no longer the man they had thought they could control. I didn't wait for their response. I didn't need it. I had said everything I needed to say, and as I walked out of that office, I knew that I had taken back the control they had stolen from me all those months ago. The air felt different today, thicker somehow. Maybe it was the weight of everything that had happened, or maybe it was because I had finally reached the point of no return. My phone buzzed, pulling me out of my thoughts. It was Kate. I stared at the screen for a moment. My finger hovered over the green button, but I hesitated. What was there left to say? What could we possibly discuss at this point? She had made her choice a long time ago, and I had to stop pretending I could fix things that were broken beyond repair. I took a deep breath and answered the call. Liam. Her voice was soft, hesitant. Can we talk? The pain of hearing her voice again sent a ripple of emotion through me. I didn't know what I was expecting, but it certainly wasn't this. Her asking to talk as if we could just pick up where we left off. As if nothing had changed. Is this really what you want? I asked, keeping my tone calm, even though everything inside of me was screaming. After everything that's happened, you think we can just go back? I don't know, she admitted, the uncertainty in her voice clear. But I miss you. I've missed what we had. I closed my eyes. How many times had I told myself I didn't need this? That I was better off without her? Yet her words still hit me hard like a punch to the gut. Kate, I've spent too long holding on to something that wasn't meant to be, I said, trying to steady my emotions. What we had, it's gone. And you're not the person you used to be. Neither am I. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, but no words came for what felt like forever. I made mistakes, she finally said, her voice breaking. I know I hurt you. I know I pushed you away and I didn't mean to. But can't we fix this? Can't we try again? I rubbed my temple, the weight of it all crashing down on me. I had been angry, hurt, betrayed. And yet, hearing her say she wanted another chance made me realize something I hadn't been able to admit until now. I didn't need her to choose me. I needed her to choose herself. I needed her to finally take responsibility for her choices, and I needed to let go. I don't think you get it, I said, my voice quiet but firm. I've done the work on myself. I've spent months healing, finding my own peace. And the truth is, I don't need you to fix me, Kate. I need you to fix yourself. She was silent again, and I could hear the sobs she was trying to hide. My heart twisted, but I didn't let the pity in. I couldn't. I'm not the man you need me to be anymore. I can't be that person for you. My words were final, but gentle. I wasn't angry anymore, just exhausted, emotionally drained. You need to choose what you want in life, and I'm not part of that. Another long pause, and then she spoke. I'm sorry, Liam, I truly am. I was selfish, and I can't take back what I've done. I exhaled, a mixture of relief and sadness flooding me. I know you're sorry, Kate, but we can't keep dragging this out. We both deserve more than that. I understand, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Goodbye, Liam. I held the phone in my hand, feeling the weight of it. I didn't want this, but I needed it. I needed to stop pretending. I had spent so much of my life hoping, waiting for something to change, but the truth was, the only thing that needed to change was me. I ended the call and sat back, staring out the window. The world felt a little quieter now, a little clearer. I had finally found the closure I needed, and even though it hurt, I knew it was for the best. I didn't need Kate to choose me. What mattered now was that I had chosen myself. A year has passed since everything fell apart. The time between then and now has felt like a slow, steady healing, not just for me, but for Kate too, I suppose. We've both had our moments, our lows and highs, but we've grown. Just not together. I'm sitting in a quiet cafe, sipping my coffee. The same cafe where we used to sit for hours, discussing everything and nothing. The tables still look the same, the barista still remembers my order, but there's a change in the air. In me, in her. It's like the calm after a storm, but everything around you looks different. More alive, maybe. Kate sits across from me, the soft hum of the cafe almost drowning out the silence between us. She's different now. Stronger somehow. I can see it in her eyes, the self-assurance, the way she no longer hides behind her excuses. I'm glad we're doing this. she says, breaking the silence. Yeah, I reply. Me too. We've been meeting like this occasionally, but every time it feels more like a distant memory than anything real. The love we had? It's still there, somewhere deep, but it's no longer the force that defines us. It's the past now, tucked away where it belongs. I've been thinking, she continues, about everything that happened, and where we are now. I nod, leaning back in my chair. I've been thinking about that too, about us, about what it means to choose yourself. I know, me too. It's like I thought we'd always be something, that I'd always be there for you, and you'd always be there for me. But people change. Her lips twist into a half smile. You're right. We were never going to stay the same. There's a quiet sadness in her voice, and I can't help but feel a pang in my chest. But it's not sadness for the lost love anymore. It's the sadness of realizing that sometimes you have to let go, even of the people you once thought you couldn't live without. We didn't choose easy, she adds, but I think we chose what was best. I look at her, really look at her, and I know what she means. She's found herself. She's no longer the woman I once knew, and neither am I. We've both made decisions, hard ones, and here we are. Separate but whole. I've learned, I say slowly, that love starts with yourself. I was so focused on loving you, on keeping you, that I forgot to love who I am too. She reaches across the table, her hand brushing against mine. Her touch is warm, familiar, but there's no desperation in it now. No need to hold on. I get that now, she murmurs. I'm not the same person I was either. We sit in silence for a moment, letting the words hang in the air. There's no regret between us, no bitterness, just understanding. I'm glad you found yourself, I say, looking her in the eyes. And I'm glad I found me. She smiles, and it's genuine, not forced. We're both stronger for it, aren't we? I nod. Yeah, we are. I realize then that this is the ending I've needed. Not the fairy tale ending I once dreamed of, but an ending that feels right. An ending that gives me peace. I don't need her to choose me. I don't need to prove anything anymore. I've chosen myself, and that's enough. Kate leans back in her chair, her gaze drifting toward the window. I don't think we could have ever made it, Liam, she says quietly, almost to herself. I know, I reply softly. But we were supposed to meet at this point. To learn, yeah. She smiles again, this time with a sense of finality. I think we've both learned. As I stand to leave, I realize that the weight I carried for so long, the weight of wanting her back, of trying to fix what was broken, is finally gone. I've done the work. I've forgiven. I've moved on. As I walk away, I don't look back. I don't need to. I'm free now, and for the first time, I'm okay with where I am.